Hey guys, and welcome to Carnage and episode 2 of our turbo taxi build. We're down at MPW where the boys have let us a little bit of space so we can start throwing performance parts at our turbo taxi. But before we do any of that, we're going to head back out to Calder Park and see if we can beat that pathetic time of 17.2. So we're back out at Calder Park today to run the taxi and see if we can get a decent baseline run. Now, last episode you would have seen we did a 17.2 and that was really slow. Made the mistake of trying to stall it up on the converter and they brought in the torque protection in the auto and pulled all the power out of it. This time I'm just going to jump on it and surprise it and we'll see if that does better. So here's the plan. Not even going to bother with a burnout, going to drive around the water, then I'm just going to put it in to performance drive mode and we'll see how we go with that. Come on, go. I might actually win this one. We'll see. 16.8. That's better. Okay, 16.8, which is great. But I reckon we can get better out of it. Just going to bring up the revs gently to about just over 750. Here he comes, holy crap, watch this. Woohoo! A little bit better, but still, there's more in this.
Alright, I've stolen the taxi off Scotty. He and I have got a bit of a rivalry when it comes to drag racing. Since Drag Challenge last year where I had the XR8 Sprint, he had the XR6. I'm going to try and beat his time. I think he did 16.8 last time. I think I can beat him because he didn't do a burnout. And everyone knows you got to do a burnout when you're drag racing. Well, it did a burnout, so I've already done better than Scotty there. I'm already getting beaten by the XR8. Oh, come on, baby. He has got about 6 car lengths more now. Oh my god. Come on, come on, come on. 16.70, yes! Oh, that's a new PB for the car. Oh, Scotty's not going to be happy. Yes!
So we're at MPW today with the taxi. We picked up a motor for $200, bargain. So we're going to swap that in to replace the motor that's got that bottom end knock. The boys have generously donated a hoist for the day, so in and out in one day. Bloody hell, come on. There we go. So while the engine's out of the car, we've put a oil drain back into the sump, just because it's a hell of a lot easier to do it while it's out of the car than while it's in the car. Anyway, we'll whack that back on the new motor and we'll get cracking. Have you ever started a job and then gone, you know what, should have just paid someone to do this? I'm kind of getting to that point right now. And we've only just started. Whoop. Wow, that's really yucky water. Wow. Oh, yuck. Look at that. That is just gorgeous. Okay, back up again. So we're just doing the last bolt on the transmission. And then we can yank this bad boy out. So we've hit a bit of a snag with our engine removal. Everything is disconnected except for this main piece of the loom. So to get that out of the way, we have to pull it out of the computer, but the computer is riveted in place.
You can get them off just with a little centre punch.
So centre punch them
And work them around.
and work them around, you reckon? And then we can do that.
Yeah, then you can undo that and just pull the loom out.
So we worked out that they're not actually rivets. They're bolts that are designed from Ford to snap the head off when they get to a certain torque. Fun. There you go. And now we have an ECU. So we got a bit of a late start this morning, started about 10. We were hoping to have the engine out by 12, 12:30. And to be honest, we had pretty much all the bolts done by 12:30. Problem was the wiring. What a nightmare. Every time you move the engine, there's something else attached to it. These things are insane. So, that's day one. What did we ever do before power tools? Alright, dipstick comes out. And there we go. One intake manifold. Because they're cross-bolted also through the sump into the main caps, makes these engines almost indestructible because everything's held together so well. So we've noticed that we're going to have to change the rocker cover because, as you can see, it's going to interfere with the gas mixer there. So the rocker covers are definitely different from petrol to LPG, as are the intakes. Trouble is, we've got a broken hex key here, which means we can't undo these front bolts. So what we're going to have to do is be a bit tricky and do it that way. So while we've got the cover off, I guess it's a good time to look at what these engines are. So it's a 4 litre straight 6 cross-flow design, right? So intake on this side, exhaust on this side, dual overhead cam, as you can see. They've got roller followers in here. Really clever design, and based on the same bore spacing as the original old Falcon 6s from the 60s, which is pretty amazing.
Scotty, so day 3.
Yeah, day 3. If I ever suggest to buy a cheap motor and then swap everything over, just kick me, because we should have just bought an LPG motor from the start so we could drop everything in as is. So you're just putting the final bolts in for the covers and just all these little bits and pieces that have to go on. And then we should be able to drop it in. That's the plan anyway. So we've hit a slight snag with our engine replacement. The engine that we bought for 200 bucks came out of a manual car. The problem with that being is it has a spigot shaft bearing in the back of the crank that we forgot about. So I reckon that's hitting against the converter and therefore not allowing the engine and gearbox to pull together properly, which means we've got to pull the transmission out of the way so we can get that spigot shaft bearing out of there. Cars. So here's the problem. We've got the nose of the converter, and if you look here, we've got the bush in the back of the crank, so we've got to pull this bush out so our converter can sit in there. Alright, so day 4 of captivity. We're just been slamming away on this thing. It has been a nightmare. Everything we touch just turns to shit. I don't know why, but just We should have just bought an LPG motor to start off with. Yesterday's big problem, was a spigot shaft bush in the back of the crank that interfered with the front of the converter. That really put us behind. But anyway, it should be running today. Our very expensive rocket cover gasket costs 110 bucks. Well, that was a lot less painful than I thought it was going to be. So of course now we've got some wiring to do. So wow, after 4 days, we've got a new motor. And to be honest, I was probably being a bit optimistic, thinking it was a one-day job.
Yep, the taxi has broken down. It's overheated quite badly. I think it's just a radiator leak, but obviously Scotty and I didn't tighten up the hoses or something correctly, but we'll see. Someone will come and look at it, a professional, and they'll probably fix it. Calling Telf. Give him the bad news. Mate, got some bad news.
What's going on?
The taxi's broken.
Oh.
Yeah, I drove about,
How far did you get?
I got about 45 minutes, and then there was just steam pouring out of the thing, big warning lights on the dash, all that stuff. So I pulled over and there's radiator fluid everywhere. I think maybe one of the hoses was loose, probably our fault.
Were you doing burnouts?
No, I wasn't doing burnouts. I probably should have been, but I was in stop-start traffic the whole way and it was just, wasn't good.
You tell Scotty and I'll call a tow truck.
Okay, cool. The tow truck is here.
You broke the unbreakable.
I didn't break it, it broke itself.
That's not the story I'm hearing. I think she's burst a radiator.
Oh, there's still a bit left in there.
Yeah, about a cup and a half.
Poor old taxi. It was going so well.
I'm not surprised it lasted this long before it threw a leg up.
Well, this is the new improved motor without the knock.
Without the knock.
Maybe we should have left the knock in there.
Yeah.
Maybe the knock was holding it together. Oh well. Well, that I guess a lot of these parts are we're gonna find that.
Yep.
What's that? Destruction testing? Is that what you call
Yes,
it?
destructive testing.
Hey guys, Scotty here, and we're down at MPW again today, where they're going to help us fit this Plasma Man intercooler setup. We could probably do this at home, but well, we're under the pump a bit. We're supposed to have this car down at Tunnel Vision turbocharging, get ready for the next part. Unfortunately, they're not quite ready for us. We're not quite ready, so we've got to get things happening. And just to help things out, we're going to get the boys at MPW to, like I said, fit the cooler kit, fit the battery relocation kit, do the valve springs. There's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to be done. Let's get it done so we can get ready for when the car goes down to Tunnel Vision. Anyway, let's get on with it. So Ben's just removing the radiator supports right now, and this bar goes in their place, moves the bottom of the radiator back, so therefore we can squeeze a big fat intercooler in there. So this is our air intake kit for the turbo. Bend goes through there with the air filter, comes down 4-inch to the turbo inlet. We're going to get rid of this gas converter and obviously put the turbo manifold on later and whack the turbo on there. So Plasma Man do this awesome battery relocation kit. Comes with cables and battery clamp and all that sort of stuff. It's pretty cool. So let's have a look inside. Make sure I don't slice myself open as I have done before. The scars to show it. Just in case you want more Plasma Man goodies, they show you some of their range. So we've got a couple of pre-terminated cables. So the red cable, that'll go to our starter motor, which will connect up to the old battery cable. So we should probably explain that the reason we're leaving the original cable in place is so the car can still get its power from that original cable. This way we're not screwing with any of the original electrics, just adding an extra lead in. I love this though. They do this really cool Plasma Man battery clamp. So it obviously goes across the top of our battery and clamp it in place. How cool is that? So we've mentioned before that this is an LPG vehicle. That means liquefied petroleum gas, or as the Americans call it, propane. So if you've been sitting here wondering what the hell we're talking about with LPG and barbecue gas and all this stuff, we're talking about propane. This car is factory propane, all right? It comes from the factory running on propane, or LPG as we call it here in Australia. So it's got 2 round tanks, and they equal about 90 litres, and it feeds gas up to a converter at the front of the car, which we've got to remove in a sec because it's in the road of our turbo, converts it to vapour, which is then channeled across the top of the motor into the mixer, which runs the whole show. Now, obviously none of this is going to be any good for a turbo setup because it won't flow enough gas. So what Jason at Tunnel Vision is going to do for us is do a LPG injection setup that is going to supply all the gas that we need for our, well, 20 pounds of boost or thereabouts, okay? So what we've got to do is lock off the gas system here, so then we can crack the gas line at the converter, get the converter out of there. So that's what we've been talking about all along. Propane gas, that's what runs this thing, and that's what's going to get us down the quarters in about 10 seconds, I reckon. So I've come up with a new automotive theory, and I'm going to call it Scotty's theory. And it should say that if a manifold has 12 bolts, the first 10 will take 10 minutes to undo. The last 2 will take a hour. Wait. A bit of sparks. Someone didn't cover the starter motor very well. That's what caused our sparkage. We'll have to tie that protective cap over the terminal a bit better. Oh, finally. So we've dummy fitted the turbo at the moment. It's just 2 bolts holding it onto the T3 flange there. But you can see the oil feed isn't pointing straight up. So I've loosened off all these 13mm bolts here on the turbine housing and the compressor housing. So I'll just rotate that so it's pointing directly up. And what we'll do is I'll get the spanner and just tighten up 2 of those bolts, and that way we can get it out on the bench and tighten it up properly. So here we are. This is our Garrett GT35 84R. Billet wheel, roller bearing, water cooled, built for us by GCG turbos, as you can see in there. So internal wastegate, but with a aftermarket actuator. It says GCG, but these are actually made by TurboSmart for GCG. Now you might be wondering what I mean by 84. It's the measurement across the X-juicer. So this is the in-juicer, and then the larger part of the compressor wheel is called the X-juicer, and that's where your measurement 84mm comes from. On a normal XR6 turbo, that's about 76mm, so you can see this is quite a bit bigger, flows a lot more. This will be good for between 800 and 1000 horsepower, way more than we need really, but it won't limit us either, so it shouldn't be too laggy. It should be really good for us. So we'll tighten up all those bolts and then we'll get it in the car for good. I love my turbo. I knew there was a reason we called this show Carnage, so I decided to change the coolant temp sensor, didn't I? This thing. What a pain in the ass. It sits in the back of the head, the hardest point in the car to get to. Now we had to change it because the thermofan wasn't cutting in when it was supposed to. It would cut in like just after you started it, or it would, you know, not cut in at all. It was doing really weird things. And it's pretty much the only thing we didn't change when we changed the original motor. So I go to change it. Well, luckily we didn't have the cameras running because the sensor beeps would be going off the limiter. Turned it in by hand, nice and easy, tightened up just a smidge, snap. So after cursing and swearing for 5 minutes, I had to extract that by sticking an easy out in there and just winding it out by hand. There was no tension on that at all, came out easy as. So there's a $90 sensor down the drain. Thankfully, Ford's genuine sensors are cheaper, $69, and we're going to try that again. Okay, so you might remember from way back earlier in the episode where we put a dash 10 fitting in the side of the sump and we just blocked it off with that bung. Well, we don't need him anymore. So what we've got is a 45-degree dash 10 fitting, just a bush lock one, and some hose, which we've already marked off to suit. And then we'll put it up there with a hose clamp. Oil drain back is important with a turbo. If it blocks up or backs up, you end up with a heap of oil pressure in the turbo and it blows past the seals, you end up with smoke everywhere. No one wants that. So there we have it, guys. We've got our turbo on, our intercooler on, big Plasma Man intercooler, our GCG turbos in there as well. We've got our intake there as well, the big 4-inch intake. We've got our battery on that side, so they've basically swapped sides. And obviously we've still got an intake manifold to go on there as well. So that's over at Tunnel Vision Turbocharging, where Jason is modifying it for LPG injection right now. So that's where the car's headed. Well, not next. Next, we've got the exhaust system to go. So it's going to extract a performance exhaust, where Andrew's going to do a 4-inch dump and a full 4-inch system. So that's going to be a big chunky exhaust system. So exhaust system first, and then intake manifold at Tunnel Vision Turbocharging. But I reckon that will do it for this episode. So we'll catch you next time.